Toxic men often pursue women who struggle to set boundaries. They thrive on control, and a people pleaser makes it easier for them to dominate the relationship. Lesson: learn to say no. Establish boundaries and enforce them without guilt. Remember, self-respect is non-negotiable. Toxic men are drawn to women who are naturally empathetic, kind, and forgiving. These women see the best in people, even when others don't. While empathy is a beautiful trait, toxic men exploit it by playing the victim or pretending to need saving. Lesson: protect your empathy. Recognize when someone is genuinely in need versus when they're manipulating your kindness. Empathy is one of the most powerful and beautiful human qualities. It enables us to connect with others on a deeper level, offering understanding and compassion, especially during difficult times. However, when empathy is not properly safeguarded, it can become a double-edged sword, particularly when toxic individuals exploit it for their benefit. Toxic men, those who thrive on manipulation and control, are often drawn to women who possess an abundance of empathy, as they recognize this trait as a potential means to manipulate. The key is understanding how to protect this powerful quality while still being kind-hearted and compassionate so that it doesn't lead to exploitation. When a woman is empathetic, she has an innate ability to see the good in people even when others may not. She often goes out of her way to help those who are struggling or in need, and this is a beautiful characteristic that can change lives. Toxic men are often drawn to this type of woman because they can easily exploit her compassionate nature. They may appear vulnerable, emotionally distant, or even broken at first, seeking care and attention, which makes the empathetic woman feel that her help is needed. This is where the manipulation begins. These men know that a woman with empathy will feel compelled to assist and heal those around her, even at the expense of her own well-being. Toxic men often position themselves as the victim in the relationship, making it seem as though they are in dire need of help. They may share their personal struggles, pretend to be emotionally damaged, or exhibit signs of emotional dependence. At the start, this vulnerability might seem genuine, and the empathetic woman may feel like she's the only person who can truly make a difference in their life. She may feel needed, validated, and powerful because her empathy allows her to provide comfort and support. As the relationship progresses, the dynamic changes. Toxic men begin to take advantage of this dynamic, using it to gain control. They may start demanding more of the woman's time and energy, making her feel responsible for their emotional well-being. They may use guilt to keep her in the relationship or convince her that without her, they would be lost. They will exploit her good nature and make her feel like she is the one who must constantly give in order to keep the relationship afloat. Over time, this creates an unhealthy power dynamic where the toxic man holds control and the empathetic woman begins to lose herself in the process. It's crucial to recognize this pattern before it becomes too entrenched. Empathetic women often have a deep desire to help others and make the world a better place, but when dealing with a toxic individual, this desire can be manipulated. In many cases, the toxic man is not seeking genuine help or healing. Rather, he is seeking a source of power over the woman. The more the woman gives, the more he takes. The more she tries to heal him, the more emotionally drained and depleted she becomes. This can lead to a cycle of constant emotional labor, where the woman's needs and well-being are ignored in favor of the toxic man's demands. To protect her empathy, the woman must learn to set clear boundaries and recognize when her kindness is being exploited. She needs to understand that while offering support to others is important, it should never come at the cost of her own mental, emotional, or physical health. A truly healthy relationship is one where both individuals support each other in a balanced and respectful way, where both people's needs are met without one person feeling as though they are constantly sacrificing their own well-being. Setting boundaries is not about being cold or indifferent. It's about recognizing your limits and understanding that you cannot pour from an empty cup. An empathetic woman needs to learn when to say no and when to walk away from situations or relationships that drain her energy without providing anything in return. This doesn't mean she has to stop being compassionate. Rather, it means she has to prioritize her own self-care and well-being while still extending kindness to others in a healthy, balanced way. Protecting empathy from toxic individuals is about recognizing your worth and understanding that your compassion is not something that should be taken advantage of. Toxic men will always be drawn to women who have a deep well of empathy, but the key is to ensure that this empathy is never used as a tool for manipulation. By setting healthy boundaries, maintaining self-respect, and recognizing when manipulation is taking place, women can protect their empathetic nature while still being kind, loving, and compassionate individuals. In the end, empathy is a gift, but like any gift, it must be used wisely. When it is shared with the right people, it can foster meaningful connections and create a positive impact on the world. However, when it falls into the wrong hands, it can lead to emotional exhaustion, burnout, and heartbreak. By safeguarding this gift, women can continue to use their empathy in a way that empowers them rather than leaves them vulnerable to exploitation. People-pleasing is often seen as a noble trait, one that stems from a desire to make others happy and to avoid conflict. Many women, in particular, are conditioned to be accommodating and agreeable, often at the expense of their own needs and desires. While it's important to be kind and generous, constantly striving to please others, especially in relationships, can be a dangerous habit, particularly when toxic individuals are involved. Toxic men are often drawn to women who are people pleasers because they know they can manipulate these women into giving more than they are willing to receive, which ultimately leads to a power imbalance. Toxic men are adept at recognizing when someone has trouble saying no, and they often target individuals who are people pleasers because they know how to exploit this weakness. At the beginning of a relationship, the dynamic may seem harmless enough. The woman, eager to keep the peace and make her partner happy, may go out of her way to fulfill his needs and desires. However, as time goes on, the toxic man begins to take advantage of her inability to assert herself. He may start making unreasonable demands or asking for more and more of her time, energy, and attention. The people-pleaser woman, believing that she must always accommodate him to keep the relationship harmonious, finds herself stretched thin, constantly sacrificing her own well-being to make him happy. The toxic man uses manipulation tactics to maintain control over the situation. He may use guilt, emotional blackmail, or even praise to get what he wants. For example, if she expresses any discomfort with the situation or attempts to set a boundary, the toxic man may accuse her of being selfish or uncaring. This creates an unhealthy dynamic in which the woman feels she has to continually give in to his demands in order to avoid conflict or negative emotions. Over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, exhaustion, and emotional depletion. The more the woman tries to keep the peace, the more the toxic man pushes for more, taking without giving anything in return. The root of people-pleasing behavior often stems from a fear of rejection or abandonment. Many women who fall into the people-pleaser trap have been conditioned to believe that their value is dependent on their ability to please others. This can stem from early life experiences, societal pressures, or past relationships where they learned that their worth was determined by how much they could give or how much others approved of them. Toxic men are keenly aware of this vulnerability and exploit it to manipulate the relationship to their advantage. They know that by pushing the woman's boundaries and making her feel guilty for not accommodating him, they can continue to maintain control. The danger of this dynamic is that it erodes the woman's sense of self-worth. As she continually sacrifices her own needs for the sake of the toxic man's happiness, she loses touch with her own desires and becomes more and more dependent on his approval. This leaves her in a constant state of anxiety, fearing that if she doesn't keep up with his demands, he may leave her or criticize her. The longer this pattern continues, the harder it becomes for her to break free. She may start to feel trapped in the relationship, unable to assert herself or stand up for what she wants because she's been conditioned to believe that her happiness depends on making him happy. To break free from the cycle of people-pleasing, it's important for women to recognize their own worth and learn to set healthy boundaries. Setting boundaries isn't about being selfish, it's about recognizing that both partners in a relationship should give and take in equal measure. A healthy relationship is built on mutual respect and understanding, not on one person constantly sacrificing their own happiness for the other. Women who struggle with people-pleasing need to learn that it's okay to say no, that their needs are just as important as anyone else's, and that they deserve to be treated with the same level of respect and care that they give to others. It's also important to understand that saying no is not a rejection of the other person. It's simply a way of taking care of oneself and ensuring that one's own needs are met. Learning to assert boundaries and express personal needs is a vital part of self-care and emotional well-being. Women who are people pleasers must realize that by constantly giving without receiving, they are not only hurting themselves, but they are also allowing toxic individuals to take advantage of their kindness and generosity. Breaking the cycle of people-pleasing can be challenging, especially when it's deeply ingrained in one's personality. However, the first step is recognizing the behavior and understanding that it's not healthy for either party. Women must begin to prioritize their own emotional and mental health, understanding that they are worthy of love, respect, and care without having to constantly please others. When women stop prioritizing the happiness of toxic individuals above their own, they reclaim their power and take the first step toward healthier, more balanced relationships. People-pleasing behavior can be incredibly harmful when it's used as a means of maintaining peace or gaining approval in a relationship. Toxic men take advantage of this need to please, knowing that it gives them control. The key to breaking free from this dynamic is to recognize one's worth, set clear boundaries, and practice self-respect. By doing so, women can begin to build healthier relationships where both partners give and take equally, and where the needs and desires of both individuals are valued and respected. Toxic men are often attracted to strong, independent women because they see them as a challenge, a prize to be won or conquered. These women may be confident, self-sufficient, and capable of navigating life without relying on others, which in itself can be a powerful quality. However, toxic individuals who thrive on control and manipulation find it particularly enticing to target women who are strong because they want to break that strength and bring them down to a place where they feel dependent. The toxic man may believe that by winning over a strong woman, he can establish dominance in the relationship, convincing her that even though she is independent, she still needs him. At first, the attraction between the two may seem healthy enough. A strong, independent woman who is used to handling things on her own may be drawn to someone who offers support, validation, and care. The toxic man may present himself as someone who compliments her, offering a sense of security and emotional warmth that she might not be used to, even though she doesn't necessarily need it. Over time, however, the toxic man begins to make subtle moves to undermine her self-sufficiency. His compliments turn into criticisms, his support becomes controlling, and his affection comes with strings attached. The more he challenges her strength, the more he begins to break down her walls. This is his goal, to make her question her independence, to make her feel that her strength isn't enough on its own. For a woman who is used to doing things for herself, this may not happen overnight. Initially, she may not even realize that his behavior is toxic. She may attribute his controlling actions to concern or care, not recognizing that his comments about her needing him are intended to create doubt in her mind. Toxic men are skilled at using charm and flattery to draw in strong women, making them believe that they are special or unique, that no one else will treat them the way he does. The strength that once defined her starts to feel like a weakness as she begins to doubt her own capabilities in the face of his constant attempts to take control. The more the toxic man undermines her, the more he tries to take credit for her achievements or control her decisions, making her feel like she's not capable of making her own choices. He may begin to belittle her ideas, dismiss her opinions, and try to replace her voice with his own. Eventually, she may begin to question her worth or feel guilty for asserting herself. The very traits that made her strong, her confidence, her independence, her self-reliance, become the very things that the toxic man seeks to destroy so he can establish his own dominance in the relationship. This dynamic is particularly dangerous because it often plays on the woman's sense of self-worth. Strong women are often seen as having it all together, but this does not mean they are impervious to manipulation. In fact, toxic men often target those who seem strong because they recognize that their independence is something that they can break down over time. They exploit vulnerabilities that might not be immediately obvious, such as a fear of being too independent or concerns about not needing anyone, and twist these into emotional tools for control. By gradually eroding her confidence and making her feel less capable, they begin to isolate her, creating a cycle in which she increasingly depends on him for validation, even though she never needed the dependency to begin with. It's essential to understand that the toxic man's behavior is not about the woman's strength at all. It's about his need to control and dominate. The stronger and more independent the woman is, the more she becomes a target for manipulation. Toxic men are not attracted to strength because they admire it. They are attracted to it because they see it as a challenge, a goal to achieve. They want to break her down so that she will depend on them, whether emotionally, financially, or mentally. The key to overcoming this type of manipulation is for the woman to stay true to herself and recognize that her strength and independence are not weaknesses to be exploited. She must not allow anyone to make her feel that she cannot achieve success or happiness on her own. Her independence is what makes her valuable and capable of thriving, and this strength should never be sacrificed for the sake of a relationship with someone who seeks to take advantage of it. Learning how to recognize the signs of manipulation and control is essential in breaking free from toxic relationships. A strong, independent woman must trust her own judgment and intuition. If a partner begins to undermine her achievements or make her feel like she is less capable than she really is, this is a major red flag. It's important to stay connected to one's own sense of self and not to lose sight of the person you were before the relationship began. By embracing her strength, setting firm boundaries, and refusing to allow toxic individuals to manipulate or control her, a woman can protect herself and preserve her independence. Toxic men may be attracted to strong women, but they can never break her unless she allows them to. Toxic men are often drawn to women who are emotionally available because they see them as an opportunity to gain control and manipulate their feelings. An emotionally available woman is one who is open, understanding, and willing to connect with others on a deep level. She is empathetic, compassionate, and tends to give her time and energy to her partner in ways that create a strong emotional bond. While these qualities are valuable in any healthy relationship, they can also be exploited by toxic individuals who seek to use her emotional availability for their own benefit. At the beginning of the relationship, the toxic man may appear charming and caring, seemingly appreciating and reciprocating the emotional openness that the woman offers. He may make her feel special by affirming her willingness to connect and share her feelings. However, this emotional connection quickly becomes one-sided as the toxic man begins to take more than he gives. He may become emotionally distant or cold, only to return when he needs something from her. This cycle of emotional withdrawal and re-engagement is a tactic used to create confusion, leaving the woman questioning the stability of the relationship and whether her emotional investment is being valued. The toxic man feeds off the emotional energy of the woman, draining her without providing any emotional support in return. He may demand her attention at all hours, expecting her to drop everything to cater to his emotional needs, yet when she needs support, he is absent or dismissive. This imbalance creates a dynamic where the woman feels as though she is always giving but never receiving, which can cause her to feel depleted and undervalued. Over time, this erodes her sense of self-worth as she becomes accustomed to putting his needs before her own. The toxic man may also use emotional manipulation as a tool to keep her invested in the relationship. He might criticize her, make her feel guilty, or gaslight her into believing that her feelings are invalid. By undermining her emotions, he makes her second-guess herself and believe that her emotional needs are unreasonable. He may accuse her of being too sensitive or overreacting when she expresses discomfort, further creating a sense of confusion and self-doubt. This manipulation reinforces the toxic dynamic where the woman feels constantly on edge, trying to navigate the emotional minefield that the toxic man has created. For the emotionally available woman, the idea of emotional intimacy can often be a deeply fulfilling experience. She seeks genuine connection and craves understanding and affection. In a healthy relationship, emotional intimacy is mutual, with both partners sharing their vulnerabilities and supporting each other in times of need. However, in a relationship with a toxic man, this sense of intimacy is distorted. He may open up just enough to create the illusion of connection, but only to the extent that it serves his own needs. The woman may find herself constantly trying to read between the lines, trying to make sense of his actions and words, all the while hoping that the relationship will turn into the emotionally fulfilling experience she desires. The toxic man's behavior is often driven by his desire to maintain control over the relationship. By manipulating her emotional availability, he ensures that she remains emotionally invested and attached to him, even if the relationship is unhealthy. This emotional attachment is what keeps her tethered to him, even when she starts to recognize the toxic patterns. He may try to make her feel that no one else will understand her as he does, playing on her fears of loneliness and emotional abandonment. This tactic ensures that she continues to put up with his toxic behavior because she believes that without him, she will never find the emotional connection she craves. The more emotionally available the woman is, the more she becomes vulnerable to this type of manipulation. She may believe that her willingness to invest emotionally in the relationship is a reflection of her love and commitment. However, the toxic man views this availability as a way to maintain control, seeing her emotional openness as an opportunity to manipulate her into sacrificing her own needs for the sake of the relationship. Over time, this creates a dependency where the woman feels unable to live without the toxic man's validation, approval, or attention. To break free from this unhealthy dynamic, it's essential for emotionally available women to recognize the signs of emotional manipulation and prioritize their own emotional well-being. It is crucial to set clear emotional boundaries and avoid giving too much of oneself to someone who is unwilling or incapable of reciprocating. The woman must learn to protect her emotions, to realize that her feelings are just as important as those of her partner, and that she deserves to be in a relationship where emotional support and understanding are mutual. Healing from a toxic relationship takes time, but it is possible. Emotionally available women must learn that their worth is not dependent on how much they give to others. They must understand that healthy relationships are built on balance, respect, and mutual care. Recognizing that emotional availability should not be exploited is the first step toward reclaiming their emotional power. By prioritizing their emotional needs, setting boundaries, and focusing on self-care, emotionally available women can begin to break the cycle of manipulation and find relationships that are truly fulfilling and reciprocal. Toxic men are often drawn to women who have a high level of self-respect because they see them as a challenge and an opportunity to break down their confidence. A woman with self-respect values herself, her boundaries, and her worth. She does not tolerate mistreatment and expects to be treated with dignity and respect in any relationship. This is a powerful trait, and for a toxic man, it can be perceived as a challenge to his need for control and validation. He may see her self-respect as something to undermine, to test, and eventually to break down. At first, the toxic man may seem to admire her self-respect. He may initially play the role of the perfect gentleman, offering compliments, showing respect, and even mimicking her behavior to seem aligned with her values. However, this is often a facade. His goal is not to honor her self-respect, but to find ways to manipulate her into doubting her own worth and values. The initial admiration often gives way to subtle undermining tactics designed to erode her sense of self. This can include playing on her insecurities, offering helpful criticism, or belittling her achievements or appearance. One of the primary tools used by toxic men to undermine a woman's self-respect is gaslighting. He may begin to question her perception of reality, making her feel as though her standards and boundaries are unreasonable. If she sets a limit, for example, he may accuse her of being too rigid or controlling, trying to make her believe that her self-respect is a form of defensiveness or insecurity. In his eyes, her refusal to tolerate disrespect is a weakness, one that he feels compelled to challenge. Over time, this subtle manipulation begins to break down her confidence, leading her to second-guess herself and feel guilty for holding firm to her boundaries. Another strategy that toxic men use is to play on her empathy and desire to care for others. They may present themselves as victims, claiming that their behavior is the result of past trauma or difficult circumstances. This often triggers a woman's compassion, making her feel that it is her responsibility to fix him. By positioning himself as someone who needs saving, the toxic man makes her feel guilty for not accommodating his behavior, leading her to question whether her self-respect is too harsh or rigid. She may even begin to wonder if she is being too hard on him, ultimately compromising her standards for the sake of the relationship. Toxic men also often use manipulation to create an imbalance of power in the relationship. They may attempt to isolate the woman from her support system by making her feel that her friends or family don't understand her, or that they are against the relationship. They may even go so far as to use jealousy or possessiveness as a way to control her actions, making her feel as though her self-respect is an obstacle to maintaining the relationship. The more he chips away at her boundaries, the more she begins to question whether her standards are too high or unrealistic. She may feel pressured to lower her expectations in order to keep the peace or maintain his affection. As a woman's self-respect begins to erode, she may find herself tolerating behavior that she once would have never accepted. She may start to ignore red flags or justify his actions, believing that his treatment is somehow her fault or that she is being too sensitive. The toxic man's goal is to make her feel that her self-respect is a liability, something that gets in the way of a successful relationship. By gradually wearing down her defenses, he creates a sense of dependency where the woman feels as though she can no longer stand up for herself without risking the relationship. The longer a woman remains in a relationship with a toxic man, the harder it becomes to reclaim her self-respect. She may begin to feel trapped, believing that her worth is now tied to how well she accommodates his needs, rather than how well she respects herself. Her boundaries, once clear and firm, become blurred, and she finds herself walking on eggshells, trying to anticipate his needs and avoid conflict. This constant self-compromise leaves her emotionally drained and disconnected from the person she once was. It is crucial for women to understand that self-respect is not negotiable. No one should ever feel that they have to compromise their boundaries, values, or self-worth to make someone else feel comfortable. A healthy relationship is based on mutual respect, where both partners honor each other's needs, feelings, and boundaries. If someone tries to manipulate or break down your self-respect, it is not a reflection of your worth, but a reflection of their inability to value for who you are. Reclaiming self-respect after being in a relationship with a toxic man requires time, self-reflection, and support. It's important for women to reconnect with their values, rediscover their sense of self, and surround themselves with people who encourage and uplift them. Learning to trust their instincts and not feel guilty for holding firm to their boundaries is a crucial step in the healing process. Women should never settle for a relationship that makes them feel less than who they are. Self-respect is a foundation that should never be compromised, and anyone who doesn't appreciate it is not worthy of their time or energy. Ultimately, toxic men may be drawn to women with self-respect, but their ability to manipulate and control can only work if the woman allows it. The power to protect and maintain self-respect lies in the hands of the woman, and by setting clear boundaries, seeking support, and standing firm in her values, she can reclaim her sense of worth and create space for healthier relationships that honor her as she is. Toxic men are often drawn to women who have a strong sense of independence because they see them as a challenge and an opportunity to break down their autonomy. A woman who is independent has the ability to make her own decisions, set her own goals, and live her life on her terms. She values her freedom and is not afraid to pursue her dreams, even if it means standing alone. This kind of strength and self-sufficiency can be intimidating to toxic men, who often thrive on control and manipulation. In many cases, they see independent women as a puzzle to solve, a target to break down and manipulate into submission. Initially, a toxic man may be attracted to a woman's independence because it seems empowering and appealing. He may be drawn to the idea of being with someone who is confident and self-reliant, as it may boost his own ego or make him feel more powerful. However, his initial admiration is often short-lived. Once he realizes that he cannot easily control or manipulate her, he may begin to feel threatened by her independence. Rather than respecting her autonomy, he may try to undermine her sense of self and make her feel that she is too independent, too strong, or too self-sufficient. This tactic is designed to make her question whether her independence is worth the cost of the relationship. One of the most common ways that toxic men target independent women is by attempting to isolate them from their support systems. They may try to undermine her friendships, family relationships, or professional connections, making her feel that these aspects of her life are less important than the relationship. By cutting off these vital sources of support, the toxic man can increase his hold over her, making her feel more dependent on him. He may criticize her friends and family, suggest that they are unsupportive or negative influences, and subtly encourage her to distance herself from the people who care about her. The goal is to create a sense of isolation, making her more reliant on him for emotional validation and support. Toxic men may also try to sabotage a woman's career or personal ambitions, particularly if they feel threatened by her success or independence. If a woman is passionate about her career or pursuing her own dreams, a toxic man may try to diminish her achievements or make her feel that she should prioritize him or the relationship over her personal goals. He may belittle her accomplishments, dismiss her hard work, or make comments that undermine her confidence. His goal is to shift her focus away from her own ambitions and make her feel that her independence is a threat to the relationship. In doing so, he seeks to control her by limiting her ability to thrive outside of the relationship. In a relationship with a toxic man, an independent woman may find herself constantly questioning whether she is being too selfish or too focused on her own life. The toxic man will often guilt-trip her into believing that she should be spending more time with him or prioritizing his needs over her own. He may accuse her of not caring enough or not being emotionally available enough, manipulating her into thinking that her independence is somehow wrong or detrimental to the relationship. This creates a toxic dynamic where the woman feels guilty for pursuing her own passions, dreams, and goals, and she may begin to doubt her ability to maintain her independence while being in a relationship. The toxic man may also use emotional manipulation to make the independent woman feel that she needs him to navigate the complexities of life. He may pretend to be the only one who truly understands her, convincing her that she cannot succeed or be happy without him. He might exploit her insecurities, suggesting that she is too strong or independent for her own good, and that she needs him to keep her grounded. This is a classic form of emotional manipulation, as he seeks to make her feel that her independence is an obstacle to her happiness or success. The more he undermines her confidence and tries to position himself as her only source of support, the more he is able to diminish her sense of self-reliance. Over time, this emotional manipulation can cause the independent woman to question her worth and her ability to stand on her own. She may feel torn between maintaining her autonomy and keeping the peace in the relationship. The toxic man's influence can create confusion as he blurs the lines between love and control, making her feel that sacrificing her independence is a necessary step to preserve the relationship. The longer this manipulation continues, the more she may begin to lose touch with the woman she once was, the woman who had the strength to live life on her own terms. For an independent woman to break free from the control of a toxic man, it is essential for her to recognize that her independence is not something to be ashamed of. It is a source of strength, empowerment, and self-worth. She must learn to trust her own instincts and remember that she deserves a relationship where mutual respect and support exist, not one where she is made to feel guilty for pursuing her own path. Healthy relationships are built on equality, where both partners respect each other's autonomy and encourage one another to grow and succeed. To reclaim her independence, the woman must start setting clear boundaries and taking steps to distance herself from the toxic behavior. This may involve reestablishing connections with her friends, family, and support network, focusing on her career and personal goals, and taking time to nurture her own passions and interests. She must learn that it is okay to prioritize herself and her own needs, and that a relationship should enhance her life, not diminish it. Independent women need to remember that they are deserving of love, respect, and support without having to compromise their autonomy. They should never feel pressured to sacrifice their sense of self to make someone else feel secure. Reclaiming independence after being in a relationship with a toxic man can be challenging, but it is possible. By focusing on self-care, rebuilding confidence, and leaning on her support system, she can regain her sense of self-reliance and create space for healthier, more empowering relationships in the future.